Hey, what's good, people, man? Platinum Bearded Dread. Tales upon the bench, them. It's funny because I didn't really have anything to say today, yeah. But because I had a bit of a blowout with my son. Told me he hates me. That's actually shared that on another post, but it's not. This isn't about that, though. But I wasn't in the greatest of places, you know, mentally. And I was riding my bike, and I saw this big old sign that said, get the exact words, "There's nothing that you can't conquer." Now, I'm not quite sure whether that was the right time to read something like that, because it didn't hit me the way I would like it to have. But then it kept resonating inside of my brain, my mind. There's nothing that you can't conquer, as I was continuing past the sign, the big sign. It was a big sign as well. And then, my first reaction was, at the end of the day, you know, a lot of us might react this way. You know, you say, well, you don't have my problem, or you don't have my challenge, and how do you know, and you're not me, and blah, blah. And it's a valid one, man. But then I thought to myself, maybe that's a message coming from a higher source. Forget the fact that it was an advert, billboard. I don't even know what it was advertising. I didn't even look. I wasn't interested. But those words, "there's nothing you can't conquer." I said to myself, maybe that's a message right now that you need from the highest source. You know, the Supreme One, Jah, Allah, whatever word you like to use. And then it takes on a different meaning, you know, particularly because of the fact that, like I said, that you saw that message right at that particular point in time where you was really low, and it was in big bold writing, you know, on your journey. There was no pictures there. I didn't know it was advertising, like I said, but the fact that you got it at that particular moment, and looking at it from the point of view that, yeah, that maybe it's from a higher source. And the reason why I say that is because, in truth, there's only one being that has the right to say, "There's nothing you can't conquer." And that's the one that created all of us. Because he knows, she knows, thou knows, whatever word you want to use, what we're made of. Like, you know, when you create, just say you make a bike, you build a bike from scratch. You know, when it goes wrong or something faulty, you know exactly what the problem is and what to do about it. Likewise, the being that made us knows exactly what our potential is. And also, we're made of him. We have that within us, even if it doesn't feel like it or seem like it. So when you look at those words, "there's nothing you can't conquer," it takes on a completely different meaning, because then it makes you realize that if the Most High One is saying it to us, to you, to me, directly, then it's a truth, even if we can't see it at the time. And then we've got to start looking at the word conquer, you know, and the idea that there's nothing we can't conquer, regardless of what we're faced with at the time, no matter how grave it is. You know, people give up for different reasons at different times. You know, some people take their life, which is the ultimate. And that's not in any way to make light of that, because when a person does that, then you know that they've tried everything, or at least they feel they've tried everything. But it goes back to that word conquer. When I was a youngster, I used to always be fascinated with war movies, and I used to play soldiers with my brothers, and fascinated, man. And it was the idea that, you know, a person could go into a job, because that's what a soldier is, knowing there's a very high chance you're going to be killed. It almost goes against the grain of human nature. And I just found that fascinating, man. You know, and I continued. Even now, I'm still fascinated by it. You know, I studied the Vietnam War and the First World War, and which was one of my favourites, Second World War, and, you know, all the different wars, man. And it fascinated me, man. I even had a friend who wanted to be a soldier. I'm not sure if he ended up becoming a soldier, but yeah, anything. But then, as I grew older, I started to look at the idea of fighting and conquering very differently when I got exposed, if you like, to the teachings of Islam. You know, I've journeyed through all the different spiritual paths, and for me, I've always thought, in essence, they're all saying the same thing. But what made this really interesting for me was, you know, when you look at the Prophet Muhammad, who was the exponent, if you like, for Islam. And, you know, even if you look at it now, the media have managed to give a very warped, aggressive, womanizing, forceful image of this man. But when you study him, and you study the Quran, which is the best way to study him, you realize that this was a really gentle man, a really gentle man. But why am I even mentioning him? The reason why I'm mentioning him is because I said to myself, if I'm going to fight, as in war, there's no way in high heaven you're going to catch me fighting for a government, a corrupt government, or any country for that matter. Because none of them are worth dying for. But this man, this gentle man, right, he always avoided people for the most part. He'd go off in the hills and the cave and, you know, and meditate. When the revelation came to him, he was commanded, if you like, I don't want to use that word, but to fight, because a point came where, you know, the powers at that time were torturing and even killing the Muslims because they simply wanted to worship the one God, you know, in their own way, which had been revealed through the Prophet. And at first, you know, the persecution and the torture continued, but then the revelation came that he had to fight because otherwise they'd be wiped out. And ultimately, you know, if someone is harming you or your family, you have to fight, man. And so he had to go from that gentle, hermit-like being to take up arms, man. And I find that fascinating because that's the kind of army I would be in. A man that's been led by the Spirit of the Most High, a man that has a history of no violence, a man that doesn't even want to get involved in confrontation but just meditate and pray. You know he's on the right path. That's the kind of army I'm fighting for. And the reason why I'm even mentioning the word is because out of Islam comes the word jihad. And many people, as we know, the media have made it look like forcing Islam by the sword, which is an oxymoron because Islam means peace. But anyway, the media have successfully made it look like that is what Islam is, forcing by the sword. And there's a verse in the Quran that says, let there be no compulsion in a religion. I forget the rest of it, but you think about it. But this word jihad, and on one level, yeah, it did mean fighting, but then the Prophet explained that on the next level, on the deeper level, should I say, it meant conquering the lower self, you know, whether that be anger, hatred, envy, fear, you know, everything that's of low vibration. That's what the higher meaning of the word jihad. And it makes, for me personally, realize that the great war really is the one inside, man. You know, so now whenever I look at movies, I still watch them. You know, you see the armies, them doing their thing, and you know, arming up and going to war with the enemy, quote unquote. But now I'm starting to look at the films differently. For me, the enemy is the lower self. You know, those low vibrations that are stopping us from achieving our highest. And so I'm on my own personal jihad, if you like, where I've joined the army of the Most High and I'm trying to conquer that enemy that is within, that is getting in the way of getting me as close to the Supreme One as possible. And don't get me wrong, because who knows, a time may come where you have to fight, as in an army, but that army has to be an army of God. None of this warped view of a sense of who you are now. And that's one of the reasons why I guess Islam in that sense resonated with me a lot more than Christianity, because it goes against the grain of human nature to turn the other cheek if you're being attacked. And there's only so long you can do that before your family's wiped out. But if we look at the word jihad and the idea that it's a fight against the lower self, this whole thing about there's nothing you can't conquer takes on a complete different meaning, because there are challenges that are a part of life and that we have, more importantly, the tools to conquer it, to fight it, you know? But anyway, man, So next time you think of those words, there's nothing you can't conquer. And the next time you hear the word jihad, think about what it could mean other than what the media have told us. And when you hear about the name Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I should say, think about the essence of what his life was in terms of the struggle against the lower self and how we can apply it, man. Regardless of whether you want to call yourself Rasta or Muslim, Christian, it doesn't really matter, man, but the principle, you know, of fighting, whether it be physically because you have to, or more importantly, the spiritual war. And we're all engaged in that right now, you know, as we live and breathe. But anyway, man, chat, man, I don't want to keep you too long. Platinum Bearded Dread. Tails upon the bench, them. Yeah, man.